In a bustling diner, tension simmered when a racist remark shattered the routine. A white woman's cruel mockery of a black waitress echoed through the air, piercing the din of clinking cutlery and murmured conversations. But what happened next stunned everyone present. Instead of retaliation, the waitress responded with unwavering grace, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the woman's venomous words. As the seconds ticked by, patrons held their breath, unsure of what would unfold. Would this encounter escalate into a confrontation, or could something unexpected break through the tension? It was a moment that challenged prejudices and preconceptions, where the power of human decency stood poised to reshape the narrative. In the face of adversity, the waitress's quiet strength hinted at a deeper story, one of resilience and the potential for change. Stay tuned to witness how a simple act of dignity transforms a potentially explosive situation into a pivotal moment of reflection and understanding. The waitress, whose name tag read Maya, was known for her warm smile and tireless work ethic. She'd been serving at the diner for years, balancing long shifts with dreams of opening her own cafe one day. Regulars adored her, but that morning the energy was different. The white woman, seated by the window with a group of friends, had been making sharp comments under her breath since Maya first approached the table. At first, Maya brushed it off. She was used to rude customers. But as the remarks grew louder and more pointed, others in the diner began to notice. Whispers spread among the tables, heads turned, and an uneasy silence fell. Maya's hands trembled slightly as she refilled coffee cups, yet she held her head high, determined not to let the woman's words break her composure. Unbeknownst to everyone, one quiet observer at a nearby table was about to change everything. Maya continued working, her focus shifting between the woman's table and the growing tension in the room. She could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on her, some silently rooting for her to stand tall, others too stunned to intervene. The woman, emboldened by the lack of immediate consequences, leaned back in her chair and laughed loudly, tossing another cutting remark in Maya's direction. This time it was too loud to ignore, and a child at a nearby table turned to their parent, whispering, "Why is she being so mean?" From the corner of the diner, an elderly man adjusted his glasses and watched the scene unfold. He'd been coming to this diner every morning for years and had grown fond of Maya's kindness. Across the room, a younger woman with a laptop paused her typing, her gaze locked on the interaction, her expression unreadable. The tension was thick, yet no one moved to intervene. As Maya calmly placed the check on the offending table, the woman smirked and muttered one final insult. But just as the words left her mouth, the quiet observer at the nearby table stood up, their chair scraping loudly against the floor. All eyes turned toward them, the entire diner holding its breath as a new layer of the story was about to unfold. The diner fell silent as the person who had risen from their seat began to walk toward the woman's table. It was a man in his 40s, dressed in a crisp suit, who had been quietly sipping his coffee in the corner. His expression was calm, but there was a quiet intensity in his eyes. The woman glanced at him, clearly unbothered, assuming he was another spectator. But when he stopped directly beside her, her laughter faltered. "Excuse me," he said, his voice steady but firm. "I couldn't help but notice how you've been treating this young lady. Do you think that's acceptable behavior?" The woman blinked, caught off guard, before rolling her eyes. "It's none of your business," she snapped, her tone sharp. The man didn't waver. Instead, he turned to the rest of the diner, addressing everyone. Sometimes silence can be just as harmful as the words being spoken. We all heard what she said, yet no one stood up. Why is that? The room was heavy with tension, and a few people shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Maya, still standing nearby, felt her heart race. She wasn't sure if she wanted this attention or if it would only make things worse. Meanwhile, the woman crossed her arms, muttering something under her breath, but the man didn't back down. The moment hung in the air, filled with unspoken emotions and questions. The diner was no longer just a place for breakfast. It had become a stage for something much larger. All eyes were on the woman now, and the weight of her actions seemed to finally press down on her. But just as the man opened his mouth to say more, something unexpected happened that would change everything. Before the man could continue, the young woman with the laptop, who had been silently watching from her booth, stood up as well. She was holding her phone, her expression firm but composed. "I've been recording everything," she said, her voice cutting through the thick silence. "People deserve to know how someone like you treats others." The white woman's face turned pale, her confident smirk replaced with a look of alarm. "You can't do that," she snapped, her voice trembling. "I'll have you reported." But the younger woman didn't back down. "Reported for what?" "Holding you accountable for your words," she replied calmly, raising her phone slightly. Gasps rippled through the diner as a few patrons whispered among themselves. Some nodded in agreement, emboldened by this new development. Maya, still standing nearby, looked between the two women, unsure of what to say. Her chest felt tight, and she wondered if this confrontation was spiraling out of control. Suddenly, the diner manager emerged from the back, his brow furrowed. He had overheard enough and quickly assessed the situation. "Is there a problem here?" he asked, his voice carrying authority. All eyes turned to him, and for a brief moment, the diner held its breath again. Before anyone could answer, the man in the suit spoke up. "There is," he said firmly. "And I think it's time we all take a hard look at what's happening here." His words hung in the air, but no one could predict what would happen next or how this standoff would finally end. The manager looked between Maya and the white woman, his jaw tightening as he took a step forward. "Ma'am," he began, his tone firm, "I've heard enough. This diner is a place of respect, and we won't tolerate behavior like yours. I'm going to have to ask you to leave." The woman's face flushed red, her indignation flaring up once more. "You're siding with her asterisk," she spat, motioning toward Maya. "I'm the customer here." But before the manager could respond, Maya spoke up, her voice calm, but filled with quiet strength. "Ma'am," she said, meeting the woman's eyes, "I hope someday you realize that kindness costs nothing. I don't hold anything against you." The room fell silent, her words hanging in the air. The woman's mouth opened to retort, but something in Maya's steady gaze stopped her. She stood, grabbed her purse, and stormed out of the diner without another word, the bell above the door jingling sharply behind her. As the tension began to ease, the man in the suit turned to Maya. "You handled that with incredible grace," he said. Then, reaching into his pocket, he handed her a business card. "I run a chain of restaurants, and we're always looking for people with your poise and resilience. If you're ever ready for a change, call me." Maya stared at the card, stunned, while murmurs of admiration spread through the diner. The young woman with the laptop put her phone down, a small smile on her face. She hadn't planned to intervene, but she was glad she had. The manager clapped Maya on the shoulder and said, "Let's get back to work." But as Maya walked away, her heart was lighter, and she couldn't help but glance at the card again. What had started as a painful encounter had turned into an opportunity she never expected, proving that even in the darkest moments, light can shine through in surprising ways. As the diner returned to its usual rhythm, Maya tucked the business card into her apron pocket, her mind swirling with emotions. She had faced humiliation in front of a room full of strangers, yet those same strangers had stood by her in unexpected ways. The man in the suit, the young woman with the phone, and even the silent support from other customers reminded her that kindness and courage often inspire others to act. Later that evening, as she walked home, Maya thought about the events of the day. She felt a mix of exhaustion and hope. Maybe she wouldn't call the number on the card right away, but knowing that someone recognized her value meant everything. For the diners who witnessed the confrontation, it was a moment they wouldn't forget. And for Maya, it was a powerful reminder that dignity and grace could shine brighter than any insult, leaving a lasting impact on everyone involved.